So if you typed the code, pressed run, and saw "Hello World" at the bottom of the screen, then congratulations, you're a coder.
Yeah, making them bills.
But before you fill out that application for Microsoft, let's take a step back and understand what we just wrote. The code that you wrote is wrapped in what is called a method declaration. A method is a collection of code that performs a task. It is also sometimes called a function.
You should probably be writing this down.
Good call. When you see something on the bottom of the screen, or when you see Alec here attentively taking notes, you'll want to write that down in your notebook. It's information that you will need to have memorized to do your job, and information that will most likely be on a test for all of you grade grubbers out there. In Java, all of the code you write will be contained in a method. There are two things you need to know about methods: how to define a method and how to call a method. In order to define a method, you need to know the syntax of a method declaration. As we stated earlier, syntax refers to the rules about how code is written. Here is the syntax for a method, and here is an example of a method declaration. You'll want to write down the syntax of a method and a few method examples. And since we will be using methods every day in everything that we do, you'll want to memorize the syntax of the method declaration. So let's go through the syntax line by line and word by word. The first word is the access modifier of the method. Access modifier refers to who can call the method. Values can be public, private, or protected. We're going to learn about this later. For now, make all of your methods public. You'll also note that public starts with a lowercase p. Java is case sensitive. That means that public with a lowercase p is different than public with a capital P. You'll need to make sure that you use the correct capitalization when you are writing out commands in Java. The next keyword is static. This is an optional keyword that describes the behavior of the method. We'll learn about this later. For now, all methods should include this keyword. Next comes the return type. This is the type of data that will be returned. If nothing is returned, we'll put the word void there. We'll talk about variables in the very next lesson. But for now, just put the word void. Name. This is the name that you give the method, and it can pretty much be anything you want. But there are a few rules that must be followed. Number one, it should describe what the method does. Number two, it should start with a lowercase letter. It cannot start with a number. And it cannot have spaces in the name. If you want a method that has multiple words, smash the words together, but make them camel case. This means that every word starts with a capital letter and all of the other letters are lowercase, except for the first word. That starts with a lowercase letter. The next step is an optional parameter list enclosed in parentheses. If there are no parameters, you just need 2 parentheses. Finally, a method starts a block of code. All blocks of code are enclosed in braces, or in the words of the great Kevin Patton, curly boys. So, let's put it all together. The first word is the access modifier, and that will be public with a lowercase p. Next is the static keyword. Then comes the return type, which for now is just void. Then you have the name of the method. There's no parameters, so we just have 2 parentheses. And finally, it starts a block of code, so we'll put curly boys below the method name. So our method will look like that. The only thing you have to do is think of a name for the method. Your name here is just a placeholder. That's not a real name. So what should we name the method? The method you wrote basically says hello to anyone who runs it, the world. So the name hello world is very descriptive. But we can't have spaces. And we can't start with a capital letter, and we are supposed to camel case the name. So a good name is Hello World. So there's only two things we need to do to create methods on your own. Memorize the syntax of the method declaration and be able to name your methods. On the next page, we'll practice naming a few methods. You'll need to get all of these questions correct before moving on, so make sure you know those rules. Review the rules for naming the method and then press Continue.